I happen to remember my parents telling me about FDR. My mother worked at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, and FDR was in the hospital, and he was dying, and he knew he was dying, and yet he continued to run for the fourth term. And my parents were livid that not only did he do that, but the press was covering it up. And since then, we have learned that the press picks favorites and they cover up the behaviors that they find um, um, inappropriate. So before I was even born, the president who was born or who was presiding right before I was born was truly did a disservice to the country. And then you go to Truman. Now, I think from what I've read, Truman was a very upstanding president, but he was treated like dirt because FDR did not keep him informed, and he put him in a position that was dreadful. And so, from a personality perspective, I have no problem with Truman, no problem with Eisenhower. Um, I suppose the one that comes to mind was in my high school days, JFK ran. And he was a fabulous orator. I mean, all of us, ask not what you can do for your country, but what your country can do for you. That's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I mean, that's just like some of the most powerful words that you would ever want. And JFK was a cheat, and everybody was in on it. I mean, he had affairs right and left. He was immoral, absolutely immoral. And yet the press had him as if he were a god and made this pretend story about Camelot. So JFK, forget it. And then after JFK was Lyndon Johnson, known to be a wheeler and a dealer and someone who was not in the least bit ethical. But he was a very, very powerful man and got through uh, life changing legislation with the Great Society. Now, I remember that speech. And I was very moved. I was a young, I guess I was still a teenager, right, in my latter years. And I thought he was had the most wonderful vision. Well, here we are, all these years later, and the Great Society has been a great failure. So, from a policy perspective, not only from a personality perspective that he was dreadful as a person, but from a policy perspective, he was dreadful. And then we had Nixon. And Nixon, of course, became tainted with Watergate. But Watergate is nothing compared to today's problems with Biden, which we all seem to be not even grappling with. So Nixon had good policies. He opened up our relationship with China. But then politically, he was an idiot doing the whole Watergate thing. And then we had Ford. Ford was nice. Ford tried to bring peace and reconciliation to our country. We had Jimmy Carter, who, on a personal level, was terrific. On a policy level, was just beyond awful. I mean, I remember the gas lines. I remember inflation of 18%. I don't care how nice the guy was. His policies were horrible. And then who did we have after Jimmy Carter? I think we may have had Reagan. And I thought Reagan was wonderful and that his policies were wonderful. Who did we have after Reagan? Oh my goodness, isn't this terrible? Clinton. I think it was Clinton. Now, seriously, he was scum. He was just a scumbag. And so how people can be supportive of Clinton, and his wife's even worse, I look at it and say, yes, he was able to put on a persona that people seem to support, but he was a scumbag. And so then after Clinton, we had Bush. Nobody can say anything about the first Bush, and the second Bush. As far as I'm concerned, they were wonderful presidents. There were no scandals. And so we had Clinton, and then we had Obama. And I have strong feelings about Obama, that he was an opportunist, and I do not care for Obamacare, and I thought he was a terrible policy president, and that he had great opportunity for healing the Black people's wounds, and he did not do that. I think when he wanted to be white, he was white. When he wanted to be Black, he was Black, and so to me, he was a phony. And then after Obama, who did we have? Oh, I guess we had Trump. And Trump's policies have been the greatest. I mean, we had prosperity, and but the press hated him, and my friends hate him and think that he's the scumbag. So now we have Biden, who is, in my mind, the most incompetent president we've ever had. He lies. They're finding out that he has, he's been doing all sorts of illegal things for 50 years, but the press really protects him. So I look back at all these presidents, and it almost sounds like the majority of them have been dreadful people from a personal perspective. But that's the whole point, is that we really should not be looking at presidents as people, but it's that position. It's the position of president and what it represents. And that, frankly, God can use anybody to be an instrument of bringing peace and prosperity to our nation. So I am, at the moment, today, I just think that we need to stop looking at the individual person and look at the position and see what it is that we need for our country now. And we get sidetracked by looking at their personalities, because they're all flawed people. And that is the basis of my political position, is that we are all flawed people. The president, the Congress, we as individuals. And that's my religious upbringing coming forth, that in my religion, I'm a Presbyterian, we believe that all people are flawed, and that it is only through God that we can be saved, meaning that we can have our flaws overcome, that we can become better people, that we can learn to forgive each other and love each other, and that's really what our life is all about. So in answer to people, why do I like Trump? I like Trump because he has had the ability to fight back when I could not fight back. And in another video, I will tell you all the dirty tricks and activities that were played against me. And perhaps at that point, you'll be able to see that one by one, I had the same experiences as Trump. I mean, he's now with all of these lawsuits and whatnot. I had 12. Me, Peg, Grandma. I did nothing wrong. I simply ran for office, and people got upset with me for running for office and filed lawsuits against me. I fought every one of them, and I won every single one of them. But this, you want to talk about right and wrong. This was not right. This was horrible. And so I will give Trump every benefit of the doubt because I know what happened to me. And it was nothing but dirty politics. And I believe the exact same thing is happening to him. So I hope that helps to explain why I support Trump.